Judge Harridan adjusted his glasses, looked over the motion, and said the words that froze the room. "This petition goes nowhere. You have no case." Then the back doors of the courtroom swung open, and everything changed. Before we begin, like this video and tell us where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more gripping stories. Also, don't forget to encourage us by subscribing, liking, and sharing the video. Now let's dive in. Naomi Sykes was the kind of defendant juries don't forget. Neat cardigan, steady eyes, nobody, no confession. Yet a conviction all the same. Unusual didn't begin to cover it. Prosecutors called it a data-only murder. A verdict built from smart home pings, water meter spikes at 2:13 a.m., a garage door that opened without a key fob, and a smear on a rubber floor mat they swore was human blood. Her husband, Caleb, never turned up. Not a bone. Not a tooth. Just absence wrapped in certainty. 12 citizens declared her guilty, and Naomi left the courthouse in shackles while the cameras flashed like lightning. 3 years later, she stood in the same building, wrists free, hair tucked behind one ear. A pro bono team from the state university had filed for post-conviction relief, arguing newly discovered evidence and reliability failures in forensic software. She didn't look defiant. She looked tired. The judge skimmed the filings like a man checking the weather. Pages rustled. The gallery held its breath. There were reasons to doubt. So many reasons. Start with the neighbor's doorbell camera, the video the jury never saw. The prosecution said the device was offline the night Caleb supposedly left and vanished. But a server log scraped by a graduate student showed a different story. The camera pinged at 2:16 a.m., uploading a 4-second clip that failed to render. Failed didn't mean didn't exist. It meant wasn't played. Then the water usage spike. Prosecutors called it proof of a cleanup. The university's hydrologist called it a pressure surge from a municipal valve maintenance, logged 3 blocks away that same night. City records confirmed it. The maintenance crew even took a selfie at the valve box. Men in reflective vests, orange cones, grins at 2:14 a.m. The timestamp on that selfie matched the cleanup, almost to the minute. And the blood. The lab report said, presumptive positive for human hemoglobin. Not confirmed human. Not DNA. The analyst who ran that test. He'd been quietly disciplined a year later for selective reporting. His email, retrieved by subpoena, used a phrase that clung to the page like a stain. "We don't need certainty if the story's good." Shocking inconsistencies didn't stop there. The garage door. The house system logged it opening. But an overlooked service ticket, dug up by the clinic's investigator, showed that the door's sensor misread during storms, phantom opens, the vendor called them. On the night in question, wind gusts topped 35 miles per hour. Finally, the voicemail. The one the jurors heard in a darkened courtroom, Caleb's voice slow and slurred. "Naomi, don't, wait up." A forensic audio specialist flagged the file months later. Microglitches, spectral anomalies, tiny gaps like knife nicks. Not obvious to the ear. Obvious to a spectrogram. The message, he said, was stitched. Pieces of Caleb's old voicemails made into one. So the clinic filed. They attached the logs, the ticket, the hydrologist's affidavit, the audio report. They attached an ethics complaint against the analyst who liked good stories. They attached a declaration from an ex-Wilkins County deputy who said the lead detective used the phrase, "We'll fix it in court." The state pushed back twice as hard. Finality matters. The jury believed. This is buyer's remorse dressed as science. Which is why at 9:46 a.m. in Courtroom 3A, Judge Harridan leaned in and said flatly, "You have no case." Naomi's mouth didn't move. The clinic lawyer did. "Your Honor." No, Harridan's gavel hovered over wood. This court is not an appeals tribunal for every graduate student with software. Denied. A murmur swelled into the kind of sound that makes deputies touch their hips. The judge's eyes cut to the gallery. Silence fell like a curtain. And then the doors opened. A man stepped in mid-stride, escorted by 2 plainclothes marshals. Tall. Narrow shoulders. A limp he didn't try to hide. He wore a navy jacket zipped to the throat, one sleeve slightly longer than the other as though someone else picked it out. He kept his chin down until the marshal at his right touched his elbow. Only then did he look up. Gasps rippled through rooms. This one broke open. He had Caleb's face. Not the face from the anniversary photos that looped on the news 3 summers ago. Smooth cheek, clean shave, a smile that said grill smoke and Saturday errands. This was a leaner face, shadowed, older by a decade that hadn't passed. Eyes that went straight to Naomi's and didn't blink. The judge's gavel hovered in midair like a joke no one could laugh at. "Identify yourself," he said. The man swallowed. "My name is Caleb Sykes." The word that followed was a whisper, but it slammed the air like thunder. "Impossible." Reporters fumbled for phones. A deputy mouthed an order no voice found strength to say. The clinic lawyer's folder slid off the table and fanned across the carpet like a paper snowfall. Naomi didn't move. Not from shock. From recognition. Her fingers pressed the rail until the knuckles whitened. Caleb? It came out like a question and a warning tangled together. The marshal at his left reached into a breast pocket and produced a sealed envelope, thick with photocopies. Filed under seal this morning, he told the clerk. Affidavit, identification records, and a sworn statement referencing a federal investigation. The judge's voice came back like a man walking out of fog. On what grounds do you imagine interrupting this proceeding? On grounds, the marshal said evenly, that the person whose alleged murder underlies Miss Sykes' conviction is alive. Alive. The word crawled across the walls, found every ear and burrowed in. The prosecutor's chair scraped as Assistant DA Kellen Ryder stood, color gone from his cheeks. Your Honor, this is irregular. This is a stunt. The marshal shook his head. We don't do stunts. Judge Harridan stared at the man who claimed to be a ghost returned. If you are Caleb Sykes, state your date of birth. Caleb did. He added a childhood address. The name of a first dog. A scar behind his left knee from a bicycle spill in 5th grade. Prove it, Ryder said, voice rising. Anyone could have coached details. Counsel, Harridan snapped. Sit down. The clinic lawyer recovered first. Your Honor, we move, again, to vacate, and to release Miss Sykes to her family immediately. Denied, Harridan said automatically, then caught himself, pinched the bridge of his nose and said, the court will recess. 10 minutes. Marshal's chambers. But Caleb didn't move. He kept his eyes on Naomi and shook his head once, the tiniest motion, warning written in the bones of his face. And then came the twist that turned the room colder than stone. Tell them, Naomi said barely above a whisper. Caleb swallowed. I can't. Tell them, she repeated, steady now. The marshal at his right stiffened. The one at his left looked at the floor. Caleb drew a breath that trembled. I wasn't missing, he said. I was hidden. His hands clenched and unclenched like he was learning them again. A week before the trial, I was taken into protective custody by a federal task force investigating the Wilkins County Sheriff's Office and the DA's Public Corruption Unit. I was told if I surfaced people would die. Including Naomi. A crack climbed through the gallery like ice splintering glass. Ryder's pen clattered to the floor. By whom? Judge Harridan asked. The question dropped like a weight. Caleb looked past the bench, past the seal, past the flags. He stared at the door to chambers. His voice came out small and hoarse. A man I met once after hours. Said he answered to no one in this building. Said if I breathed he'd bury her. He said the name. Not loud. Clear. The judge went still as if someone had removed the batteries. Security shifted. The clerk's hand hovered over the phone. The clinic lawyer's eyes widened, then flicked to the judge, then to the marshals. Naomi finally moved. She straightened. The cardigan hung off one shoulder. Your Honor, she said, the person who kept my husband hidden is part of this courthouse. The doors to chambers clicked. Every head turned. A shadow filled the frosted glass. Slow. Deliberate. The handle turned. And in the breath before the figure stepped out, before the truth took a face and walked into the lights in Courtroom 3A flickered. What? And went out. The lights in Courtroom 3A snapped off, plunging everyone into a dense, electric darkness. For a heartbeat, there was nothing but the sound of shuffled shoes, whispered curses and one solitary thud, like a body hitting wood. Then, with an almost theatrical timing, the emergency lighting flickered to life. A dim red glow painted the room, shadows stretching tall and unnatural across the walls. The frosted glass door to chambers was now wide open. But the silhouette that had been there before was gone. Judge Harridan was still in his chair, but his face was pale and tight, his right hand gripping the bench as if bracing against an unseen blow. One of the marshals by Caleb barked, "Where did they go?" and drew his sidearm. The other dashed toward chambers. Naomi didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on something small, white and folded on the courtroom floor just inside the doorway. A single piece of paper. The marshal scooped it up and unfolded it. His lips tightened. It's blank. Hold it to the light, Caleb said quietly. Under the emergency glow, faint writing bled through in some kind of ultraviolet reactive ink. One word in block capitals. Silence. The clerk gasped. That wasn't there before the blackout. Caleb turned to the judge, his voice sharper now. This is what I meant. They control everything even in here. Whoever was standing behind that door, whoever's name I said, they don't want to be seen. And they have the reach to make sure they're not. Naomi gripped the rail tighter. If they can get into a courtroom in the middle of a hearing in front of marshals, what do you think they can do outside? The gallery was restless now. Phones were recording. The assistant DA was whispering urgently to a suited man who had slipped in during the chaos. The man's badge was hidden, but his posture screamed federal. The judge's voice, when it came, was quieter than anyone expected. This court will recess indefinitely. It should have ended there. But it didn't. Because as the marshals began escorting Caleb out, Naomi took a step forward and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Tell them the rest. Caleb froze mid-stride. His jaw clenched. Naomi. Tell them, she repeated. He looked at the marshal, then at the judge, then finally at the gallery. The people who hid me, they didn't do it to protect me. They did it to use me. They needed someone presumed dead to carry things, documents, data, that could never exist on paper. I was a ghost with clearance. A ripple went through the room. The federal-looking man's eyes narrowed. And the last thing they made me carry, Caleb continued, was proof of who really runs Wilkins County's justice system. Not the judge. Not the DA. Not even the sheriff. He turned toward the bench. The name I said before the blackout, that's the one person they fear. Because if their identity comes out, everything collapses. The marshal shoved him toward the exit, but not before he added, almost in a whisper, and they were here today. The judge banged his gavel, a hollow, desperate sound. Clear the courtroom. People began filing out, but Naomi stayed frozen in place, eyes locked on Caleb. He mouthed something to her as he was pulled through the doors. 3 words. It's not over. The moment the doors slammed, Naomi felt a vibration in her cardigan pocket. Her phone. She didn't remember putting it there. She slid it out and saw a single new text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Rooftop. Now. She looked toward the gallery. The federal-looking man was watching her, his gaze heavy, his lips pressed into a thin line. Naomi slipped the phone into her palm and started toward the side exit. Nobody stopped her, maybe because they were too busy watching the marshals drag Caleb out, or maybe because someone wanted her to go exactly where the message told her. The stairwell to the rooftop was silent except for her own footsteps. She pushed through the door into the open air. The city stretched out under a gray afternoon sky. And there, leaning against the ledge, was the silhouette she'd glimpsed before the blackout. Same posture. Same deliberate stillness. Only now the face was visible. It wasn't who she expected. It was Judge Harridan. But his expression was wrong, relaxed, almost relieved. You're smarter than I gave you credit for, he said. Good. We're going to need that. Naomi's pulse spiked. You were in chambers. He shook his head. I wasn't alone. The person you're afraid of, the one Caleb named, they left before the lights came back. And if you want to survive long enough to see them unmasked, you'll have to work with me. I don't trust you, Naomi said flatly. Good, Harridan replied. Trust gets people killed. Information keeps them alive. She took a step closer. Then start talking. Who's pulling your strings? Harridan's eyes moved to the edge of the rooftop, scanning the streets below. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. But I can show you. Before Naomi could answer, a sharp crack split the air. Not thunder, gunfire. The judge staggered, a dark bloom spreading across his sleeve. He dropped to one knee, grimacing. Sniper, he hissed. We've been made. Naomi ducked behind the HVAC unit, heart hammering. Somewhere in the street below, a car engine roared to life. Harridan slid something across the rooftop toward her, a thin flash drive in a plastic casing. This is the only copy, he said through clenched teeth. If they get it, everything we've done is worthless. Naomi picked it up. What's on it? Proof, Harridan said. Enough to bury them. But only if you live long enough to use it. Another shot rang out, chipping the concrete inches from her shoulder. Harridan waved her toward the stairwell. Go. I'll cover. He didn't finish. The rooftop door banged open and 2 figures in dark tactical gear stepped through, rifles raised. Naomi froze. One of them spoke, voice muffled behind a mask. Come with us. Now, or we take it from your body. Her grip tightened around the flash drive. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but there was nowhere to go. The lead figure took a step closer. Last chance. Naomi's mind raced. If she gave it up, Caleb's revelation died. If she didn't, she might not live to see another sunrise. Harridan's voice cut through the tension, low but urgent. Naomi, whatever you do. The rest was drowned by the deafening sound of a helicopter rotor thundering overhead, its downdraft whipping dust across the rooftop. From the side of the building, a rope dropped. A gloved hand reached down. And a voice, familiar, urgent, shouted over the noise. Naomi, jump. She turned toward it, eyes wide. It was Caleb. Thank you for watching to the end. Feel free to tell us what you think about this story. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new, like, share, and turn on the notification bell for more interesting story that will be coming up.